Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish Navi. In today's segment of Reportage, I am joined by former Election Commissioner of India, S.Y. Quraishi, to talk about his recently released book, India's Experiment with Democracy, which has been published by Harper Collins. The book talks in detail about India's first general elections in 1952 and the people associated with it, whom the author calls the unsung hero of India's democratic process. The book also talks about the electoral bonds, how social media has destroyed the fabric of Indian society, and of course, the controversial EVMs. Mr. Qureshi, in the book, which has been recently published, you talk in detail about India's first general elections, which were conducted from September October 1951 to February March 1952. Then you also talk about Sukumar Sen and you call him an unsung hero. The current generation does not know anything about how India conducted its first election. Kindly talk about how did this, how did Mr. Sen basically lay the foundation stone of a democratic India?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. People actually do not go beyond 10, 20 years. And in fact, on a personal and family level, they know their father's name for sure, but 50% may not even know their grandfather's name, and 0% know their great grandfather's name. So people they really don't like history, don't want to go back into history. Now, the first election when we chose democracy, and on 26 January 1950, we became a republic. And so immediately thereafter, Prime Minister Nehru selected Sukumar Sen, who was the Chief Secretary of West Bengal. He was an ICS officer to as the Chief Election Commissioner, and asked him to conduct elections as soon as possible. So he got into the act immediately, and you mentioned the date when the elections were finally held. So why I think Mr. Sukumar Sen is the unsung hero, the foundation of the Indian electoral system which he laid, we have been working on it till today. I think about almost 80% of the system which he set up, that is the system we are following till today. And what is important is that that time there was no staff. Most of the people had migrated. Many had died. They were killed in the riots, and many may have retired. So there were hardly any experienced people who had conducted some election earlier in 1935 and some in 44. So with no experience, no staff, no infrastructure, having to do such an exercise, which was even then the biggest election in world history. And Mr. Sukumar Sen did it. Of course, he did it in many phases. I think it is 68 phases. So that was very practical. So he started with the Himachal mountains before the snowfall, and then gradually, bit by bit, here and there. And that's why I think he is the man who needs to be celebrated much more than anybody else. So, of course, later on, with the TN session, increase the visibility and the power and authority of the election commission, which actually already existed, always existed. But he asserted and he made use of all the laws which were available. So that's why I think Mr. Sukumar Sen deserves to be applauded and saluted.
Mr.
Another
Qureshi,
interesting thing,
yeah.
one more. Interestingly, the electoral roll exercise was begun even before India became independent, or maybe just after independence, by the bureaucracy of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly Secretariat said that you start ask their officers to start doing the electoral roll making. And by the time Mr. Sukumar Sen became CEC, most of the electoral roll was already ready. So, which of course is another unknown thing, which was brought to light by an Israeli historian, a young lady, Ornit Shani, who came to Delhi and worked in the election commission. We have our old record in the basement, and she where when you go to the basement, you won't be able to breathe. But that is where she worked, and she collected all the information, and she has written a whole book on that subject. So
Which
together,
you
these
have
two
you have
elections.
also mentioned that book in here.
Yes, I have. In fact, yeah, I've written about Ornit Shani, writing about that exercise because that's the only source of information we have.
Mr. Qureshi, there has been a much talk about the controversial EVMs, and you, in your book, explain fully why EVMs cannot be hacked. Explain to the viewers what draws you to this conclusion that EVMs cannot be hacked.
You know, I've been dealing with EVM myself from 2006 till 2012 when I was in the Election Commission. I know the detailed operation of the system. And forget about that. It mentioned in many articles there, which are included in the book, the technology safeguards, then there are administrative and custodial safeguards. Every machine is guarded throughout the year by paramilitary force. So stealing even one is difficult. And there was the story of one stolen machine from Bombay. And what happened to that? The guy was arrested because he was in possession of a stolen property which he had displayed to the television. So we filed an FIR, nothing more. We had nothing against him or with, as he alleges or some people allege that we were trying to silence the critics of EVM. No. Somebody who says that he has got a stolen machine, so we have to report it to the police. Even if my pen or telephone is stolen, I have to file an FIR if it is public property. After that, the judicial system takes over. So the police went to him that you were holding a stolen property. Where did you get it from? He refused to mention, so he was put in jail. He was in jail for 10 years, 10 days. Even then, he did not disclose. I think police got tired and they let him off. Finally, they discovered a deputy collector or additional collector in Bombay Collectorate who was responsible for this theft. And of course, he was suspended, and what action followed, we really don't know.
But Mr. Qureshi, don't you think that advancement in the technology can be a disadvantage to the EVMs?
Well, advancement of technology is
more especially when we have AI now, artificial intelligence.
More especially when we have what?
Artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. But I've written in several articles, while we are a technology superpower, India, and we use all kinds of high technology for every process, everything that we do in the election, except in voting. The EVM is based on 17th century technology of an elementary calculator, deliberately. So therefore, a technology advancement now, our machine, EVM, which does not take instructions from outside, which is not connected through wire or wireless or Wi-Fi or internet with anything from outside. So it is absolutely safe, and that which is why we have taken this decision. We're not fools. We took this decision of using 3 century-old technology because it's like a basic calculator. You press a button, a vote is added. You press a button a second time, another vote is added. That is how simple it is. And nothing could be programmed, and it cannot be controlled. The telephone in your hand, this is dangerous because this is communicating with the whole world right now. So it can even cause explosions of a huge building. It can do wonders because it is communicating. Whereas our machine doesn't communicate with anyone. It is like a glass of water which you pick up, gets picked up, put it down, it goes down. That's it. On its own, it doesn't start flying.
So there is no possible way that EVM machines can be hacked.
I will tell you the proof. I'll tell you the proof if it could be hacked. Karnataka election, as recently as 2 or 3 months ago, BJP would not have lost because it was a high-stake election for BJP. They did everything possible to win this election. So if it was manipulatable, do you think they would have spared it? Any party, for that matter, in this case specifically BJP, any ruling party, no machine was introduced in 1982, in 1998. So no ruling party would ever lost an election. Whereas for the last 20, 30 years, parties have been losing and winning regularly with the same machine. And surprisingly, I heard a Congress leader recently, only last week, saying that, complaining about these machines, having won with the same machines a great election in Karnataka 2 months ago. So what does it mean? I don't understand. And earlier in West Bengal, recently in Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, so the ruling party, national ruling party, and a powerful one at that, if it has lost four major elections, with EVM, so therefore we cannot say that they have won the other election through manipulation. So if manipulation was possible, they would lose no election. So
Let
what
me let
better
me let
proof?
me repeat this for the viewers then. There is EVMs cannot be manipulated.
Yes, I insist. I have been saying that it cannot be manipulated. But let me tell you that an additional, in 2009, EVM, anti-EVM controversy was at its peak. And at that time, who was opposing the EVM? The BJP. They even wrote a book called Democracy in Danger, and with documents how EVM could be manipulated, this, that, and the other. So, and with a foreword by Mr. L.K. Advani. So, immediately there, when I came to occupy the post of CEC, I immediately called an all-party meeting. I said, what do you say and what do you think? They say, no, we are not saying that the EVM can be manipulated or have been manipulated, but what they lack is transparency. When you press a button, a vote goes into the CPU, central processing unit. So physically, you can't see it going. It is only your belief that it has gone to the right place, not go to the wrong voter, up or down. So, therefore, they suggested Mr. Chandrababu Naidu was leading this delegation, and there were chief ministers and many, many top leaders of all parties. And they said that if you introduce VVPAT, voter verifiable paper audit trail. Now, there are two things here. One is voter verifiability, and the other is a paper audit. Now, what is voter verifiable? That if you press the button and it went into the machine, as I told you, you don't know where it has gone. Now, we added a machine, a printer on which there is a monitor. On that monitor, the person you have chosen, his name, his face, and not his face, his the party symbol comes on the screen. For 7 seconds, it stays there, so look, this is the guy I voted for, and he has come on the screen. And after 7 seconds, this slip gets cut automatically. It goes into a sealed box inside. Right. Now, this is the paper trail. The first is voter verifiable. The first thing when you see your candidate's name and symbol on the screen, you have verified, yes, he is the guy you've chosen. Now,
Mr.
paper trail is that chit is in the box at the end of the election. If a machine has 700 votes, there will be 700 chits, and machine says that Danish got the 200 votes, so there should be 200 chits for Danish. And lakhs have been compared, and they've always tallied.
And there was no manipulation at all.
How can there be? Because this is the system. And after lakhs of them were compared, and there were a few errors discovered here and there, for which some technical reasons were found, which were explained. But the only thing is that the election commission should have been more vocal, more transparent about it. People keep on shouting and screaming, and election commission keeps quiet. they should immediately hold a press conference and display and tell the truth. So
Mr.
that is what we
Qureshi,
used to do. Yeah.
Mr. Qureshi, the other point, the other important point that I want to take amongst your book is that about the election commission. You yourself write that the election commissioners are now being called to the PMO's office. You have then you also write that when Moli was the law minister and Khurshid Salman, then after that Salman Khurshid became the law minister. You call them, and you were in the chair. You call them to the commission. And explain to me now, in such a scenario, has the election commission become a spineless institution?
Well, it's not right to say that election commission is called to the PMO as
The
if on a regular
commissioners,
basis. Yeah, commissioners, but it happened only once, and there was a hue and cry. And I wrote an article that this is totally unacceptable. Election PMO officials are bureaucrats, and even PM cannot summon election commission. It is like, can the PM, no less, summon the Chief Justice with all his judges, say, come to my office and tell me what you want, or he would not do that. It doesn't happen because it's an independent constitutional body. The commissioners may have been bureaucrats yesterday. Well, at that time, we were all subordinate to the minister. But once appointed, I had to resign from the IAS, as all of us have to cut off our relations with the government. We keep them arm's length. We are an independent constitutional authority, distant from the government. And therefore, to be called by PMO officers that he want to discuss the thing, we will send our officers. We also have officers. We would have sent our officers. And the fact that they went there, it is totally unacceptable. And I had written unequivocally about this at that time. And in contrast, what you mentioned, I brought to you this example when Mr. Veerappa Moily was law minister. He invited me, Mr. Quraishi, you have been talking of electoral reform. Why don't you come and have a cup of tea with me tomorrow? Now, very quick decision, 5-7 seconds, I had to take this call. It's yes or no. If I had gone there, yeah, the subordination of the election commission to the law ministry would have been established. And there were times which Mr. Session has written about that the chief election commissioner would be sitting outside the minister's office for 2 hours. On occasion, when for
Mr. Quraishi,
rupees.
Mr. Quraishi, we still have hope from this institution. As you are underlining, saying something that it's still a democratic institution and no political party intervenes there, is it still a democratic institution?
Well, an institution is actually an individual who is running it. So, in fact, even Ambedkar said that well, we are giving you a constitution, and a constitution is as good as or as bad as the people running it. If there are bad people, the constitution will be manipulated. If there are good people, they'll run it well. So it is incumbent on the individuals, and their style, their character, their spine, they all may differ. So that's why there are ups and downs. There are now why do we talk of TN Session till today? Because he was different. He showed a spine which nobody else has done. Well, the Sukumar Sen we are talking about, but everybody has done well in his time.
But BJP is a completely different party. These are completely different players. They do not care about democracy. They do not care about morals. They do not care about ethics.
Well, BJP was there in 1998 to 2004.
But not with this brute majority.
Well, fair enough.
And then again, two personalities were different. Vajpayee was something other. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is completely different person.
I think what I said about the election commissioner incumbent, the same goes for the political union incumbent. Same party prime minister. One is liberal, the other is not liberal. So individual temperament, character, style, all these matter a lot, and and after all, election commissioners and these institutions are not machines. They have to deal with the given situation. They have to live up to the expectation because Constitution has provided enough safeguards.
Mr. Qureshi, before I come to the last segment of your book, which is Pakistan, I must ask you a question which you have already answered in the book. Why have you become the unofficial spokesperson of the commission?
No, 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 no. That's a way of expressing it. Point is, if some election issue comes up, you as a journalist would like to, first of all, you would try to contact the CEC or the two other election commissioners. If they are not available, then you will go to some retired one. So I was of the retired CECs. I'm the only one who has been active because I've been writing regularly the articles and the books. So if they talk to me, I have to say something. If something has been done by election commission, either I defend it or criticize it. So the fact that I was very active in writing and continued my interest in electoral reform, I became a sort of spokesman for the election commission, self-appointed ambassador of election commission. So that is all it means. But because why are you interviewing me and not anybody else? For the same reason.
I completely get your point. My last segment of this interview in the book, you also write about Pakistan. And you write that 2018 elections in Pakistan was a milestone for the democracy in Pakistan. What led to you such a conclusion?
Well, observation. I had gone there as an election observer, as a member of the Commonwealth Election Observation Mission. So, which is normally headed by a former head of the state. In this case, it was the head of the state of Nigeria, General Abu Bakr, who was heading this delegation, and there were 18 members from different countries. And when we go there, we are divided into teams of two each and sent to different directions. And we watch exactly the election happening. We talked to people. Opposition leaders came to meet us. The media came to meet us. We had wide interaction. So, for instance, I personally went to about 100 polling booths. The first thing that I would do, I'll ask the opposition party agent sitting there. In every booth, as you know, there is an agent of a candidate or an opposition party. We'll ask them, are they happy? Any complaint? They all said no complaint, not at all. We saw their ID, whether they're imposters or they're genuine people. So they all had their ID card and they all said there was no complaint. So when we saw no complaint, what else shall we say? And most importantly, at the end of the election, a press conference was taken by the FAFEN, Free and Fair Election Network. That is an organization like ADR in India, which also has the National Election Watch. So 30,000 citizen volunteers who keep an eye on the election. And they were deployed at 30,000 polling stations. Their Secretary General did a press conference and he says, we got reports from all our 30,000 observers and nobody has complained. They have all said it's a fair election. So what more do we need to say that this was a fair election? Which is why it is not my personal opinion. It was the opinion of the Commonwealth Observation Mission. There was a European mission also. They also gave it a clean sheet with some observations also. But our Commonwealth mission, after observing it for 18 days and in depth, when we did not see anything ourselves, well, the election is a complex process. There may be still manipulations, deep-seated, deep-rooted in far-off places which we could not see. That possibility is there. But then the fact that citizen observers, and they said it publicly in a press conference, in internationally televised. So I thought that was good enough proof.
In India, we regard Pakistan as an army state where army controls everything. And there you are in 2018, you were there as an observer. What is your overall impression of Pakistan election system?
Well, I wrote an article in the Indian Express, which is reproduced in this, because this is a collection of my published articles in various newspapers. And in fact, the title given by Indian Express to my article was "What I Saw in Pakistan." And let me tell you, our High Commissioner, Indian High Commissioner in Pakistan, who is a friend of mine, who he wrote to me. He says, okay, "Sir, you have captured it beautifully, except the title, which says what I saw in Pakistan." Because he says, okay, actually, if you read that article, we read there only 18 days before the election. But what had happened 2 months or 3 months before, that is also mentioned in my article, because opposition leaders had come and reported to us. Media and other various stakeholders, NGOs, they had come and reported to us. We captured all that and we mentioned that. So it is much more than what I personally saw. I've reported what was reported to us also. So, the fact that everybody at that point certified what ultimately will happen to poor Imran Khan, we don't know. But then, and in fact, we talked to the army also. We went to the army chief also. The
Mr.
chairman
Kamar
and I,
Bajwa,
small village.
General Kamar Javed Bajwa, you mean to say, right?
Yes, 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 yes. So, and our chairman and 2, 3 members went to see him and asked him also. And then we also tried to see. Well, the army man was there inside, all right. But the reason given by the army was that the last time the army was only outside. Despite that, people criticized the election and they said that the election has been manipulated and the army allowed it to happen. Therefore, we had to post a man inside with the direction that they will not interfere. They'll just observe. They'll just keep standing. So we saw them in every of the 100 booths which I mentioned. They were all there inside, but standing in a corner just watching. So, and the reason given by the army was that when they were outside, there was criticism that inside things were happening. So, the effort was that there should be a genuine election, and which is why I said that I thought the election was fair.
So Pakistan too has now a evolving democracy, which may take time, which may take years, but they have gone on to that way, on to that path.
Yes, in fact, what I had written then, that this was the second election in succession where the power was being passed on democratically. Otherwise, no elected government was able to complete its term. There would be an army takeover, there will be a coup. So, but in this case, first Nawaz Sharif completed it, then I think there were two. This was the second consecutive term which was passed on to an elected body. So we thought that the democracy is now there to stay. So actually, the army may be playing their some role behind the scene, but still it is the elected government which is at the moment in operation, and instability and all that, which is a matter of concern. But we would be concerned if army actually takes over. But they are definitely influential. Everybody admits they are influential. They are called by a various name: establishment, the act of God, and whatever. And humorously, Department of Agriculture. So these are the different names they give to the army. And of course, their interference is noticeable to the discerning eyes.
Mr. Quraishi, my last question before we wind up this interesting discussion. Do you think that India would see a free and fair election in 2024?
Yeah, we hope so. We hope so, because Indian election, the sheer size and magnitude, about 1 billion voters will be there this time. And the fact that we are able to do it is like 90 countries going to poll at the same time. 90 countries, entire continent of Europe or entire continent of Africa. So this is one side, the peaceful election of such a magnitude. The other is there may be 2-3 complaints of model code violation, whether election commission acted promptly or not, as was alleged in 2019. If we can take care of those eventualities, those possibilities, it is very possible to do good election yet again. And let us see. And as I said, it all depends on the incumbent. This incumbent team has to prove itself. Everybody is watching their behavior. Everybody is watching their conduct. And let us see how they withstand pressures, which you are referring to. Let us see how they conduct themselves with what transparency. My only advice to them will be transparent. Share. If there is a complaint, come out, address a press conference, explain everything. Because that is what we used to do, and nobody mistrusted us. They totally had faith in us because we were transparent. We didn't try to hide anything. So keeping quiet, we had already answered 6 months ago, 4 years ago. We are not going to repeat it. Why not? If a complaint is made 10 times, you have to answer it 10 times. Why not?
Mr. Quraishi, let's hope for the positivity and let's hope for the best that Election Commission this time addresses all these issues, and let's hope we see a good election in 2024. Let me hold this book once more for the audience so that this reaches to more authors and readers and they read it. Thank you, Mr. Quraishi. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.